Good evening, Mr. Bryan Anifasi. How are you today?
I'm wonderful, doctor. It's always a pleasure to see that wonderful smile of yours.
Such a privilege to see your smile too.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, man, I really love the work that you are doing.
Oh, thank you so much, doctor. And you are an inspiration to many of us.
You are an inspiration to many of us. Nobody wants to accept that they are an inspiration.
I understand.
So we are in COVID-19.
Yes, indeed.
And everybody is confused. People are afraid. They don't know what's going to happen. And you and I have a passion to develop business leaders and to empower entrepreneurs.
Definitely.
So
definitely.
That's the reason why we are here in this interview. And I want to acknowledge the presence of Tariro. Tariro is with us, Tariro Mativiri. We appreciate you, Tariro.
Thank you so much, Tariro, from joining us all the way from Qatar.
Yes, please. All the way from Qatar. Wow. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Highly appreciated. Yeah, highly appreciated. All right. So maybe somebody wants to know who is Bryan? Who is Bryan Anifasi?
Ooh, yeah, that is... I could write a book.
Please, we need books.
I could write a book.
Right.
But just to give a basic insight into who I am, I'm a very young man. Don't be fooled by the beard and so forth. Still very young. If doctor is as energetic and as young as you are, then I might consider myself an infant, to say the least.
You have started.
But I'm a young person who has dreams, who has aspirations, who has hopes, and who, as many of us have done, has gone through the course of life's cycle in regards to where I am now, where we started, of course, with academic, endeavors, and I started with that, as everybody else, from our basic education all the way to tertiary, where I found myself endeavoring to achieve a lot of academic success. I'm passionate about academics, to say the least. I love
I know that.
I'm not going to lie about that. I love books. So I've had the privilege, I've had the privilege to study quite a bit. But my greatest, can I say, my passions in regards to academic have centered around business, around events, and now I'm into education. So I have my honors degrees in international business and in events management. And now I'm pursuing my master's in early childhood development. I'll explain the reasoning behind all of that as well. So that it can make sense to say what's going on there, what's happening there, so that's who I am. I've had the privilege as well to experience certain things, in life that have led me on this particular course that I am on right now. Let me start, of course, there's always got to be a story, isn't there?
Yes,
behind everybody. And so, so you find that my story obviously would begin in high school, boarding school, literally. Boarding school. I was at an all-boys school in Zimbabwe. That's decades ago now. But when you are there, you learn a lot of things about life, and one of them is learning how to survive, learning how to interact, how to integrate, into a society. But also, what many would not tell you is that you learn how to be a dealer, when you are at school. at boarding school, you learn business, you learn the art of trade and commodity. Let me call it commodities trading. That's what you learn
right.
when you're
Okay.
at boarding school for your survival. So that's where my passion initially for business started. And I learned a lot of things during that particular process. I'm privileged to also have a very loving family, you know, my siblings, my parents as well. They're into medicine. Very wonderful, wonderful, supportive people that believed in the dreams that I had and the dreams that I shared. And speaking about that, from high school, after developing that knack, you know, you go out during holidays, you continue trade, you continue business, you continue one thing. If it's not video games that you're trading, it's comics. If it's not comics that you're exchanging for money and selling, it's clothes. And of course, we wouldn't tell our parents this, and I'm sure your children will never tell you this, but sometimes at boarding school, we used to trade our sneakers, you know, for some cash and things like that. So we can talk about it now. It's in a safe environment years later, but that's what usually transpires. So business literally starts at a very early age. It doesn't start now when you're 40, 50, or 60. It starts at an early age. And sometimes we don't realize it, that's what we were doing there, you know. So from there, my journey took me to law school. I actually went and I studied law at Wits University. And when there, I actually learned so much about myself, what moves me, what I'm passionate about. And this is a story that I'm sharing for the first time right now. When I was there, I used to stay with a relative, you know, before I moved onto campus. And one weekend, the designated driver, you know, and so as a designated driver, I ended up driving him around and doing things for him and his friends and so forth. And from that, I started when I was there. And so I started doing concierge service on the weekends after the hectic demands of law school in itself. And in the process, you meet varying people. So during one of these concierge services, well, of course, you get paid. And sometimes people pay you very well, you know, for running their errands. One thing you can always count on is people being lazy to do all of that. And so you end up embarking on all of this. You end up doing so much, you know, and you make a little. Sometimes it took me drives to Durban, to Cape Town, you know, just handling concierge services. It was all about how hungry you would have been. But once after that, I think I was having a conversation with one gentleman who then told me that do you really want to get into performance-based income, a lifestyle of performance-based income? Is that what you... Then I didn't understand what this fellow was talking about, you know, but he went ahead, he explained the whole concept of performance-based income. And I realized that, this might not be the journey. And after that, I shifted to Botswana. And this is where I am, to now start investigating what the opportunities were. And so I dabbled in a lot of things in between that, from being partners, from farming, all of that as well. But I centered around enterprise marketing as my core focus and my core passion. And with that now as my core passion, I realized that that drove into software development in itself, because there can be no enterprise marketing without understanding the systems that run businesses, the systems that make things efficient behind them. And from there, then I also realized that in enterprise marketing, there's a whole lot of PR involved, a whole lot of event management involved in that. And then that's what also took me to study events management. And now with a deep interest in behavioral science, I have delved now into early childhood development to understand what drives us, what makes us tick as human beings from an early age. And this is where I am now. On the business front, of course, I had the privilege to co-found a couple of ventures. One, like I said already, one is in enterprise marketing, and then into software development, but specifically focused on civic technology. And I'll explain as we go through this interview why civic technology. But it's specifically focused on civic technology. So my focus, my clientele is strictly around governments, around institutions, parastatals, embassies across the world, things like that. That's where my core focus rests on. So I'm fascinated by trying to be the next Mark Zuckerberg, in regards to developing social media platforms and so forth. But I was focused on government efficiencies, and civic society efficiencies. That's where I really wanted to dwell. And so I co-founded a company with a couple of friends. That was around 2007. Around 2007. That's the first knocks of the doors happened in that particular regard. Unfortunately, as life goes, you lose some, along the way, and lost majority of them along, let me say 95% of them along the way, because the journey obviously needed patience, but it wasn't going to be the case with many of them. And so they leave. It happens. Such is life, such is business, And so now I remain with one particular partner that I've been with for the 18 years now. And my responsibility has led me to be registering the corporation in the countries in SADC. And so now we are up to 11, countries where we've registered our business in anticipation of where we want to go and what we would want to do. And so that would be me in regards to the business perspective. I don't limit myself. I go as far as I possibly can. And I'm also a keen, passionate person in regards to farming and food security. And I'm learning as much as I can from a lot of my friends who are into beef production, who are into horticulture, sheep production as well. So it's really amazing to have the privilege to learn all of those things. That's not the end of my story. I'm also very philanthropic, meaning that I involve myself with a lot of volunteerism, which has taken me to so many wonderful places, had me meet so many amazing people. I work with organizations that deal with children's literacy. It's called Spelling Bee Botswana. I work with that organization. And we do quite a lot of work across the country with over 200 schools participating in our annual competitions and our annual programs. And they're talking about 90,000 students and teachers across the whole of Botswana, which is very beautiful. I also am a member of JCI, Junior Chambers International. You also look at the work they do in regards to community service. And I also am a strong and very vital cog in the African Union Youth Clubs, especially the Botswana chapter. I get the privilege to be able to get into high-level meetings and discuss where we are going as a region and where we're going as a continent. So it's truly beautiful for me to have the opportunity to do that. So in a nutshell, that is me.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I know that the network is trying to be jealous, and we are not going to give up.
No, definitely.
We lost you a little bit here and there, but okay. I'm very grateful for your great introduction. So there is where you were talking about you going to law school. I didn't hear whether we should call you attorney, or how did it transpire when you were in law school? And that's one thing. And the second thing is enterprise marketing. Somebody might want to understand, what do you mean by enterprise marketing?
Okay. All right. In regards to law school, I put that on hold after 3 years. And after I realized that this is not that's what deterred me the most. Doctor, when you sit in an office with somebody who makes a phone call and strikes the deal with 50 million rand, and they are walking away with 40 million rand out of that, you have to ask yourself, how long will it take me as an attorney to make that sort of money? So you realize that this is not for me. I want to make an impact, and I need to do it well. So I need, they say that sustainability. The one thing about sustainability is that you have to sustain it. So you need to know, how do I sustain adds to law school in itself. I hope you're answered in that particular
Yes,
regard.
yes,
So
yes.
don't
It
call
is
me
well
attorney
answered.
yet. We will get
Okay.
there. Like you
All
know, I
right.
love my book. So we will complete that section. Yes, we will complete that and you will get the opportunity to call me attorney, hopefully. Yeah. And so you
Thank
asked
you
also
for that.
about enterprise marketing?
Yes.
All right. Now, when we talk about enterprise marketing, the concept, the way I conceptualized enterprise marketing in itself was that I had started off doing basic marketing, which was
Can I ask you this, Mr. Anifasi? Can we try for you
websites.
to remove
But then
the
you
video?
realize that yes.
Do you mind trying to remove the video? And let's see whether your audio improves.
Okay. All right, let me try that. I don't know if the audio is fine now.
Audio is good.
Is it better?
Not really. You can try talking.
I was not really.
Yeah.
So that enterprise marketing, the concept in itself, the concept in itself was founded on a realization that you can have the most amazing flyers and the most amazing posters, but if somebody comes through your doors and the first person they meet is a receptionist, and that receptionist is the direct opposite of the beauty and the attraction that your flyer and your poster has, then you have failed. So, which means that marketing has got to go through the whole enterprise, meaning that the receptionist also serves as a marketing tool. Let me start with the security guard. In fact, the security guard serves as a marketing tool, getting all the way to the receptionist, to every department, and then to the systems that make it possible for you to offer the service. So, doctor, if I come to your office, for example, and then I'm on television or I heard it on radio, and then I get to your offices and it takes you 4 days for you to handle my query, then I've gone against everything that you spent money to do on radio and on TV. And so that meant that can we ensure that if we are marketing, then it's the whole enterprise involved in the whole marketing process, from the way the systems are handled. So if I promise you on the flyer good service, then it must happen inside the office. So before we put out a flyer, let's first see how are the systems inside. Are they designed to assist what we are going to put on the flyer?
That's excellent.
Yes.
I'm loving that.
Thank you.
I'm loving that. So, talking of marketing in this COVID era, where everybody has now been pushed into working from home, and people are learning to join the dots in terms of working digitally. What would you advise business leaders and entrepreneurs in terms of digital marketing?
I would say that first and foremost, I'll take it two ways. One being that as human beings, we are designed as very social creatures, meaning that we love interaction, we love contact, we thrive on it. It's what we're built on. We cannot do without hugs, handshakes, seeing smiles, hearing laughter. We cannot do without that. It's who we are as human beings. And secondly, now we've been put in conditions where that has been taken away from us. To an extent, it has been taken away from us. So now I can't walk into doctor's office and see him smile the way I used to. So which means that there is an avenue now that exists, of which I must then extend this physical attraction and interaction that I'm always used to, and be able to at least have it compensate for that which has been taken away from me, and that's the digital platforms. So it's important to think about it in that way, and not necessarily in terms of numbers, in terms of how much work is needed to be done in regards to that. But at all, it's about connecting people to what has been initially taken away from them during this particular period. And so as an entrepreneur and as a business person, it is not negotiable in regards to marketing digitally, because we are living on our laptops, we are living on our 5-inch, 6-inch, 7-inch screens right now. We're living in our palms. That's exactly what's happening. And we need to see you. And like I said, you as, for example, Dr. Mutoko, we need to see you smile on those same platforms that we are now living on. We want to hear that same energetic laugh. You know, when I open my Facebook and I see a video of Dr. Mutoko, I want to get that laugh that I always know that in person I would get it, so that it compensates for the failure to shake your hand or to even get a hug from you. And so it's non-negotiable that companies go digital with their marketing. And secondly, you have no choice, because how will people see you now that they are locked flyers that you paid money for? And so where are they going to see you? It's digital. So you need to keep your face, you know, in their faces, to say the least.
You know what? You have said a couple of things that are very, very mind stimulating. You mentioned that the fact that people are spending most of their times on their gadgets, you know, clicking their palms. That's very touching, you know. So, which means as they click on their palms, they must be able to click something coming from you, from each entrepreneur or business leader.
Exactly.
And then you also mentioned the issue of, you know, the same energy, the same smile, the same laughter, the same, you know, hug, maybe, you know. So now we are going online and people need to still see that smile, to see that energy, to see that laughter, even though we are far from each other. I think that's very, very, very powerful.
Definitely. Being online doesn't change who we are. It can't. It shouldn't. It should just be an extension of who we are to somebody who can physically connect with us.
Amazing. So, while we are in this COVID-19, my brother, does it mean that this is a time for business leaders and entrepreneurs to sleep and wait until COVID-19 is finished? What sort of mindset is needed for entrepreneurs and business leaders right now? What sort of mindset?
You know, when you put it that way, they say you sleep or no, they say you snooze, you lose. It only means that if you sleep, so you can't afford it at this point as an entrepreneur and as a business leader. And an entrepreneur, by definition, it's literally a life of risk for profit, no matter the conditions. That's what it is. So which means that COVID-19 is not an excuse. It's not a condition that then says, it's okay, we can give you a pass. No, it means that right now your mind should be, as an entrepreneur, what risks you're doing as a business leader. I love the terminology. I really am passionate about words and word selection. When we didn't say business triers, we didn't say business practitioners, you know, we literally said business leaders, which means effectively that what we are talking about is people who are leading. And leading means that you are at the front and you cannot stop. So a business leader cannot stop. An entrepreneur cannot stop. They have to continue. They have to keep on pushing no matter what. And that's the mindset that they need to have. Now, allow me to also say that it's important as an entrepreneur, as a business leader, to be a student of the times. Right now, your mindset should be, I should be learning what's happening What are the economics of disaster, politics of disaster, and what's the social direction in a disaster, for example? This is the time to be learning as a leader. That is how it works, doctor. You cannot afford to sleep.
Hey, that's, you know what? That's amazing.
Yeah.
So everybody, every business leader and every entrepreneur needs to understand the times.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's so they need to be a student, always learning. That's quite amazing.
Mm.
Now, what are some of the challenges that you see young entrepreneurs facing right now? I know that that we have graduates that were still looking for jobs. We have people that were employed and now they have lost their jobs or they are likely to lose their jobs. We have small, medium, micro entrepreneurs who are not sure what's going to happen after this COVID-19. What would you say to them? What are some of the opportunities that you see arising in business?
Right. Let me start by saying, doctor, that, you know, sometimes as individuals, we have to realize certain things. I know that emotions, they do take control of people at times, and that prevents us from being very logical in our thought process, logical in our analytical processes. And so this means, doctor, that at this point in time, an entrepreneur has to ask themselves, an employee who's lost their job, an SMME, they have to ask themselves, the situation before COVID-19, what was it like for me? Has there been any change? What was the unemployment rate before COVID-19? This is what a graduate should be asking themselves, that before COVID-19, what was the situation? So that if you can understand that difference in relation to employment, for example, then you'd understand the sort of course of action that needs to be taken. Let me explain a bit further. Now, here you are as a graduate. You expected that once you are done, you are going to be sending out your CVs, you're going to be applying for jobs, but now you're hearing that others are losing jobs, others are just waiting to get rid of other people. So is there space for me? That means effectively, you now need to look and say, okay, what has happened in the past? Have there been disasters before in the past? I mean, I would expect a graduate to be at a level where that should be now their port of call, going to, in retrospect, to say, was there ever a time where the world faced a global disaster? Was there ever a time where a nation faced a disaster that led to this sort of same condition? Because one thing is true, doctor, that this is nothing new. There is nothing new under the face of the sun. You see, what changes is the manner of the disaster or the manner of the challenge. But the one thing that we're guaranteed to face in life as people, as nations, is challenges. So when you go back, for example, let's say you go back to the Great Depression in America, you go back to the harsh economic times in Zimbabwe in the early 2000s, you go back, you know, to all of these challenges that were faced. What happened? What happened in that particular regard? So you realize that this is nothing new that you are facing. Now, what's important then is how do I react? Which is why now you talk about what are the opportunities that are arising now, you see? Because what I would not want, doctor, is that we have this interview and we talk about glaringly amazing opportunities, but someone doesn't understand the foundational thing that they need to have grasped, that this is not new under the face of the sun, therefore there is hope. Therefore, I can actually take the risk, take the challenge to survive, to keep on pushing, to keep going. So what opportunities now therefore exist? This is why you see, if you're a student of the times, you would now learn that, for example, right now, the greatest opportunity is in medical supplies. That's the most immediate, greatest opportunity that exists. It's in medical supplies. And even after COVID-19, after the, I don't know when would determine the after, but let's use state of emergencies, let's use lockdown situations and say after those have been lifted, the one condition that remains is medical supplies. That is always going to be one. Now there's been a great increase in the great demand. So that's an opportunity. Now, I know, Doctor, as an educator, you understand when we talk about value chains, you know, and this means that even in the supply of medicine, there is a value chain that exists. So what is the value chain of medicine? Therein lies vast opportunities. So it's not only just the production of things, but the sourcing of raw materials, the transportation, the just even basic accounting. You see, as an accountant, there's a job for you in these supplies. You see? What about the legal issues surrounding, for example, even with masks, as we are all expected to be wearing masks and so forth, what are the legal permutations in the designs of these masks? Which means that as a legal person, which means you're also looking into the opportunities that are going to come out because of this. Maybe there'll be lawsuits, someone saying the mask I bought from so and so didn't work for me. So that's just opportunities in the value chain. And I'm really going to be a proponent and a preacher of the value chain, because in the value chain exists jobs. Unfortunately, sometimes we've been educated to see the end, but not the process. And that's why many people cannot endure the process until they get to the end. So they see someone making money selling supplies, but they don't see the person transporting the supplies. They don't see the person bringing in the raw materials for the supplies. They don't see the administration of the supplies. So that's the whole value chain that now needs to be catered for. So there's opportunities in medicine. Let me go to one direct one, Doctor. We have not stopped eating. We have not stopped eating. We are eating. Even with borders closed, we are eating. So which means that there's opportunity in food. And you can imagine if we're to go into the value chain of each product, the value chain of a tomato, the value chain of a bean seed, the value chain of cotton, the value chain of wheat. I mean, the packaging, the processing, the sales, the marketing, the delivery. Even in lockdown, people still want, the deliveries have got to come. So really, the opportunities are there. The issue is us opening our eyes and realizing that, wait a minute, I might not be able to go outside the way I used to, but is it possible for me to fit myself into the value chain here? That's very important.
I'm enjoying this. I wish everybody was here. Please, you can try to put back your video, because we like seeing your face and your smile.
Let me try.
I hope Tariro is enjoying this.
I'm sure she is.
Tariro, please feel free to ask questions or to comment. You can just send a chat. All right, so that's amazing. I like the fact that you are mentioning the idea of the value chain, because, you know, sometimes we just think of people need food. Now, when people need food, you are thinking, okay, so it's good time for the farmer, it's good time for the supermarket, it's good time for, you know, but you don't realize that there is a value chain. There is something you could do in the process. Like, obviously, we have the COVID-19, like you are saying, we don't know exactly when it will end, but when it ends, or when we are allowed to go out there, each one of us can have a role to play. And it's not something that you will start experimenting with when you are out. You need to be strategizing right now. So you need to be asking yourself, in the value chain, where do I belong?
Exactly.
Okay. And then looking at, I think this is one of the hardest times to be a business leader. I can imagine somebody has maybe 100 employees or 50 employees or maybe 500 employees. What is happening in their mind? What can I do? How do I increase profits, which is most unlikely for most people, most organizations? Or you are thinking, how can I cut costs? What advice do you have for business leaders, I mean, who are struggling to think right now? And you know, one other challenge we have is that there are some employees, you know, there's theory X and theory Y of employees. There are those employees who don't like working. Let's face the fact. and then there are those who love work. Those who love work are very few. Now, I know managers and business leaders have been trying to manage some people and going to their desks, but now those people are working from home. Some managers were used to micromanaging. Now it's impossible. How do you micromanage somebody who is at home? What would you say to business leaders and to employees at the same time to balance this equation and make sure that there is still productivity for those who are working from home?
Okay, doctor. That's truly a hard question to truly answer, because there is no one size fits all answer. The best we can do is hope that you can engage in something that works for you. And that's why that my answer is not necessarily going to settle on theoretical methodologies in regards to how to deal with a crisis. But I'll go back to the one fundamental thing, which of course we focus on. I mean, I'm also on radio, and I'm always motivating people on Gabs FM. And one of the things that I always say is that what's the motive? What is the motive behind the business? What was the motive behind you as an employee applying for this job? Is if we have a clear understanding of that, it makes it easier for us to have honest conversations where an employee says to the boss, I was here for the money. That was my motive, to get the money. And the boss now and the business leader also knows that, look, I was here for the dream, for the vision, for helping people. And so you realize that we are no longer on the same path, and it makes it easier to say, look, boss, I don't think we can walk in the same line because I don't have what you are saying was your motive for working. And in the same fashion, you don't understand my motive for having this business. So what does that mean, doctor? What it means effectively is that as a business leader, you are now going back into behavioral science to understand human behavior, to understand what matters to human beings, especially now more than ever in the time of COVID-19. Many people have gone back to minimalism, to the basics, to what truly is important in my life. You know, there are some people who have been working at companies, I mean, we have to say this, for 10 years. They've been angry and frustrated. And for the first time, this crisis had shown them that they've wasted 10 years of their life and they can't. It's enough now. Now they've had time to stop. The routine has stopped. Now it's enough. For some business leaders, they are now realizing that the momentum of business was what was actually getting them through the day, no longer the passion for the dream or the vision in itself. So they've lost the vision as the business leader themselves. And that's why now they'll be struggling to say, what do I do? Because what exactly a business leader should be thinking about now is to say, do I really believe in this business? Because if you do believe in this business, if you do believe in this vision and this dream, then you try to sit and figure out, how do I make this work? And part of that is actually sitting down with your employees and saying, look, guys, I don't want to lose any single one of you. But also to introspect and say, did I treat them well enough for me to ask them to believe in me and this vision? Before COVID-19, was I treating them well enough for me to have the audacity to ask them?
My brother.
Yes.
That's powerful. Did I treat them well before COVID-19?
Mm-hmm.
Please go ahead. I see Tariro
Yes.
commenting there that it's quite striking that you mentioned that right now all of us are still eating.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So please go ahead and tell us that issue you are talking about, to say, as a business leader myself, as a manager myself, did I treat my employees right, such that in hard times I can ask for a favor? I can say, guys, can we cut your salaries to half and you continue working, or you work times 2, what you have been doing? Is this doable? Oh,
yes. Exactly, doctor. So that's the one thing that we are mostly looking at, accounting books and our bank accounts, but we're forgetting, what about the account that I have with you, doctor? That social capital that I should have with you, that in a time like this now, I can say, you've been with me for 3 years. You have seen my work ethic. You have understood my vision. Can you stick with me through this hard time? Even if I can't afford to pay you now, but can you trust me that we are going to pull through this thing? Which is what the original idea behind employment and job creation is all about. That you are attracting people who buy into your vision, who buy into your dream, and you are compensating them for the trust that they have given you. So this is why now when we come to the issue of working from home, doctor, the reason why you really needed to micromanage is because that exchange of trust, you're not sure about it. So you can't trust that the employee is working because you never spend time to build that social capital, that you would find your employee waking you at 4 and saying, boss, I was going through the papers and I realized that we missed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or there's an opportunity that's arising. I've heard word from my cousin who works in this particular department. Can we prepare documents now? I know it's 4 a.m. I'm sorry for waking you up, but I thought it's urgent. Now that cannot happen. Why? Because the social capital. It was all about, here's your salary, go. Come here at 8, leave at 5, you know? And so therefore now, this is why this period is beautiful in the sense, doctor, that we now have to ask ourselves these questions.
You know, what the things you are saying, one would say, these are things that we already, some of the things is already, we know them, but you know, I like the energy and the examples that you are giving. It's making it so lively. I even sometimes feel like listening while I'm standing up.
I understand.
It's amazing.
I honestly believe, doctor, that this is what we've been forced to do now in this era.
Yes.
We've been forced to come back to the basics of humanity. I mean, we see it in the donations people are making. It's just a question of how much we care about the people around us. So why should it change because you're a manager, you're the boss, and I'm an employee? It must all work together. I mean, how many bosses have called their employees individually because now is the time? Yes. Before, routine doesn't allow you to do so. But how many bosses have called to ask them, how is little John doing? I know that they are no longer going to school. You know, how is Mary? How is the wife? How are your parents? How many bosses have done that? But yet you expect your employee to be up at home at 8 a.m. And we're in winter now. We've entered winter. The blankets are really delicious. And you expect them to be up at 8 working for you when you haven't even called them to encourage them to keep pushing. It's a give and take. It's a give and take.
Yeah. I like the way you are really hammering on this. So it's a time for us to reflect. Definitely. Both sides, the employees and the business owners, the business leaders. It's time for us to reflect and ask ourselves, even as we come out of this COVID-19, what should we be doing?
Exactly.
Now,
and you know,
there is something. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. Just to wrap up on that particular question, you see, what this allows you, doctors, as a business owner, to know exactly who is with you and who is not. And it makes it easier for you to plan going ahead. Because if you can't do that, then unfortunately, you're going to have the same people coming in an era where you want double the speed, double the energy, but they are still holding grudges because you never called to check on them during the crisis.
Wow. I see Tariro typing there that that's a very powerful reflective nugget for you to say how many employers or how many managers, how many leaders have cared to actually, you know, call their employees. And I also want to say it's also upon for the team members to realize that during times like this, these are tough times. If you can stand out during times like this to support your supervisor, to support your manager. It's not about your manager being nice. It's not about them being good. I know it's not easy, but you can stand out of the crowd right now and go that extra mile whether you are being paid or you are not being paid, and come up with ideas and share videos and links and documents that can cause your manager to see that you are helping them. Because this is a tough time. I don't think many business leaders are sleeping right now across the world. Leaders are not sleeping. You know, you can imagine, I mean, talking of leadership, we have leadership in the home as well. The father, the mother is not sure of what's going to happen in the workplace, their business, they are not sure of. And you can imagine that one child who always comes and say, Mommy, are you fine? I'm praying for you. Things are going to be okay. I saw this link, which is talking about extra income. You know, Daddy, that child who shows, not coming to say, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. But that child who comes to encourage you, that child who makes you to smile, even when you didn't want to smile, that child, you will not forget them after the crisis. There is another one who gives you a headache during the crisis. So similarly, it applies even in the workplace. It is time to be available. It is time to try and suggest ideas to your manager, to your leader. I mean, even if they are saying, you know what, we are closing down, we have failed, things are not going well, you could still, you know, keep in touch. Oh, okay, I was studying about this. I found out that in Asia, there is this they are doing. I don't know whether it can help to resuscitate our business. It's not time for you to run away and say, hey, good riddance. So, because when things become good, who knows? You might be the first to be recalled. So I think it's also both ways right there.
No, definitely, Doctor, you are very right. And this is why I was saying that this is the time now to ask ourselves, even as employees, why did I join this company? Did I come here to be a placeholder, or I came to bring value here? Yeah. And if I'm to bring value, now is the time for me to actually show that value. Now, nobody else in the, I mean, right now, you know, sometimes the dynamics of an office, Doctor, because we can see each other, we know what everybody is trying to do. So there's that whole, oh, they are trying to suck up to the boss, they are trying to do this and this. Now you're in the privacy of your home, you can send a private message to the boss and nobody's going to be judging you for you being very innovative. And this is why, even with the issue, I know we love the word entrepreneur, but intrapreneurs now must rise more than ever. And this must come from the employees themselves.
Beautiful. I like that, because many people don't realize that you can actually be an entrepreneur, but working in an organization. That makes you an intrapreneur, that makes you a corporate entrepreneur, that makes you somebody who is creative and innovative, and you work as if the company belongs to you. And I would like to appreciate Tariro there. I saw her commenting, Doctor, I like the way you are spreading this discussion across different environments, not just the workplace, but even the family. Yes, thank you, Tariro, for that, because they say charity begins at home. So we want to have understanding in the home. We want to have charity in the home so that we carry the same charity to the work family. I believe that if people, usually people are happy to be around their loved ones, around their family. So in the organizations, we must make it a point that we create a family environment so that I'm at home, I'm with my family, I feel at home. I go to work, I'm with my family, I feel at home. So I perform the best that I can.
Definitely.
Awesome stuff. Right. So what are some of the issues that come to your mind in terms of, not, of course, I believe that mixing business and politics can be problematic. So I try to run away from politics. But from a national economics point of view, what are some of the things that you think Botswana, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Namibia, Southern Africa in general, or Africa at large, what do you think people should do on our road to recovery?
Right. Whew, that's a very complex question in itself.
It's a complex one, but I believe we can give our 2 cents to it.
Definitely, definitely. I think the one thing that happens mostly is that people make what we call univariate analysis, where they take one variable and then they think that that's what makes it tick. But this is multivariate. The variables are just, they are immense, they are numerous. And we need to understand that some of the things that obviously would share here, because we can't go into depth about everything. So obviously we are coming to just a bit of cracks of issues here and there. And like you're saying, in as much as not wanting to mix politics and business, politics also is very influential in regards to business, which means that one of the port of calls obviously must be us holding our politics to account. Our politics in regards to policy formulation, which means that the policies governing our various industries, we need to be very well aware of them now more than ever before. Because if the policies are not right, if the policies are not adjusted, if the policies are not reformulated for our benefit, it means we're going back to pre-COVID-19 scenarios. And we're working with the same policies pre-COVID-19 that then put us in this situation. And so now we need to be able to reformulate from a policy perspective, number one. Number two, we have literally locked down all our borders. I mean, countries have locked down their borders except for allowing for trade and movement of goods, which is very good. Which is very good because it shows us that we are still trading. That means that our regional trading blocks will still provide for us an opportunity for economic upturn. So we need to now start understanding where have we fallen short in regards to regional trading agreements. What needs to be ratified? What needs to be signed? What do we need to do so that we ensure that if we're not able to get produce from South Africa, can we get it from Namibia? Can we get it from Zambia? Or can we be the ones who are actually supplying to all the other countries? We sit in a sort of a nice position in terms of the way we are landlocked, meaning that we're almost central to all these other countries, especially when you talk about coming from South Africa. Can we leverage, for example, on infrastructure, such as we want to do the Kazungula Bridge? Can we leverage on our road networks to ensure that goods come through Botswana and spread to the rest of Southern Africa? Can we use our domestic policy, our foreign policy to allow for people to be coming here? I know that the president before wanted to make this a hub of meetings and conferences and seminars and so forth. Can we look at that and say, how best can we make ourselves the center where everybody wants to not only move ideas, not only move goods, but also move their money, that they feel that Botswana is safer? Can we make it possible for money to move through Botswana? Make ourselves a Switzerland of sorts, an African Switzerland of sorts, where money comes through our borders. These are just variables, but also, how do we start, as every nation right now in Southern Africa, in Africa, we have to start and look at the opportunity we've been given by this crisis to reset. In terms of, we were dependent on people for so long. Now that we've been cut off, can we fend for ourselves? Can we start there with food security issues and say, can we do a land audit? Can we see what can we do here? If it means zoning our agricultural processes, can we do that? Can we continue to support farming like Botswana does amazingly? And I'm sure other countries in SADC are also geared towards assisting in terms of agriculture, whether it's command agriculture and so forth. Can we do that in regards to fending for ourselves? And now we go back to the value chain that we spoke of before. When we do that, now we create greater value chains. Then we leverage our trade agreements. And there's a reason why we are part of these regional trading blocks. We need to be able to leverage to say, look, Lesotho, you have good soil for this and this and this and this. Botswana, you are a hub of beef and animal husbandry. Can you supply our country with this and this and this? We can't have the EU ordering more beef from Botswana than SADC in itself. That is something else. And allow me to also say something, Doctor, here that I've learned. You know, sometimes we look at our countries individually, and a bit of selfishness comes into that, a bit of, we call it nationalism and so forth, and we go on like that. But when you look at, for example, a country like Botswana, we have a population of 2.5 million people. That means that it's not really sufficient to say we can bank on just those 2.5 million people. That's the market. Those are the producers. Those are the business owners. Again, everything like that. Southern Africa has got over 260 million people. That's a potential market of 260 million people. How can we think of how can I supply beef to SADC? How can I get beef into SADC? There's a market of 260 million people who always want to eat, whether it's vegetables, whether it's meat, depending on their preferences. But they are there. Now, if we limit yourself to 2 million people, we're not going to think in regards to proper policy formulation that allows us to expand our trading ability. Then we also need to support that with economic infrastructure that allows for the movement of money, the coming in of money, that allows for ease of trade. So there's opportunities there. Again, the value chain of finance is huge. It's huge, to say the least. I mean, just a quick example is right now, people are just paying for their things. They are no longer having to go to the bank, no longer having to queue. They're just sending money just like that through various platforms. So how can we do that at a larger scale? How do we now scale up, you know, in all our endeavors and make it worthwhile? Education, which is something that I'm passionate about and you are passionate about. How do we leverage now on education to provide greater education, not only just to Botswana? Can we be the best educational hub in Southern Africa so that we can use that in terms of our economic upheaval? That's very important. I mean, America right now is crying because they make billions from education. And now when universities are closed like this, there's an uproar. And they're even scared about litigation coming because of what has transpired. So can we not be a hub of educational activity and that contributes to the fiscus? All of these things become important to understand. But at the end of the day, it's going to be what us as individuals, because every country starts with individuals. Us as individuals, how hungry are we for that recovery? A lot of work is going to be needed. A lot of patience is going to be needed. And depending also on debt, national debt, how much have we borrowed in times of crisis like this? You know, so that will affect now because you have to pay back people for what they gave you if you borrowed. So how much work do we need to do to not only pay back, but then to go forward again and go higher? So it becomes very important, Doctor, at this time to say that economically, we have been given the opportunity now to really make our regional trading blocks work, to make our continental trading blocks work. It's time for the AU to rise. It's time for the AU to stand for exactly what it meant to be. We will not reach Agenda 2063 if we cannot take advantage of this opportunity now to say, oh, this is what's happening in Madagascar. Can we import whatever Madagascar is producing? Or can we take advantage of indigenous knowledge? Can we call Dr. Mutoko to come and help us facilitate for infrastructural developments in ECOWAS? It becomes important that we begin to trust ourselves now as Africans. We have the resources, Doctor. We have the mineral resources that the world is clamoring and crying for. We have the most arable land in the world. We have it as Africa. You know, we have the youngest population per capita in the world, which means that we are geared right now to make things happen. But we need to trust ourselves. We need to be ready to also understand, Doctor, that it's not going to take a month. Some of these journeys will take us 5 years, maybe 10, maybe 15. But we have to commit now. We have to commit now.
Amazing, amazing. I like the fact that you talked about policies, because also this issue of policies goes into policies of organizations, not just at national level. Because at this juncture, I believe if business leaders have not yet started revamping some of their policies, then they are in trouble. Because, for example, now you have employees working from home. That has not been in your policies. You need to revamp your policies. Do your policies cover employees working from home? If you are not working on your policies, then what are you saying? So I think it goes from organizations, from to national level to international level. And I like the fact that you were saying SADC has got about 200 and something million people. And of course, you talk about Africa at large, you have about 1 billion people. Man,
that's a market.
I think we need to start believing in ourselves and throw away greed and be united and stop this thinking of looking at someone and say, Bryan, whose child is this one? I remember the first time I produced a book, my brother, somebody from my village on Facebook, while everybody was congratulating me, I think that was 2012, while everybody was busy congratulating me, do you know what this person from my village asked? She asked, whose child are you? Whose child are you? Which means, because when we grew up in the rural area, Mutoko family, we were known for driving bicycles. So now, for you to be heard that now you can write a book and you have a saying Mutoko, whose child are you? This person is not congratulating, he is not saying anything good. They're just asking straight away, whose child are you? We need to throw that away and begin to work together if we are going to see Zimbabwe arise, to see Botswana arise, to see SADC arise, to see Africa arise. Otherwise, we will always be crying, hey, China is abusing our people, this, that. It will just continue forever. All right.
Definitely.
As we go towards the end, Mr. Anifas, I don't know. Will you give me permission? I'm doing what I haven't done in our shows. Tariro, would you like to say some things? Would you like to put your camera on, or it's fine, you just want to chat? So you can think about that as we continue. So, Mr. Anifas, you are into software development. Talking of education and all these solutions that are needed, I don't know, what would you say? What would you say in that area?
As I'll speak on two fronts. I'll speak as a producer and as a consumer as well.
Nice.
As a producer, it's way overdue, in regards to our use of technology in our schools, from government even to private. It's way overdue. And when I say use, I mean beyond just having a computer where we put in results in Excel and we open up Word documents. Our use of technology, it's way overdue. We have spent too much time thinking that it's a luxury. Now it has gone beyond that. We have now been shown that it is a necessity. Because if we take away the interaction in terms of physically, what are we left with in regards to education? It means we're left with platforms like this. Now, there's a phrase that I learned, when I started in my journey with my passion with education, is that there are two irreducible minimums in education, which is the teacher and the student. You can take away the classroom, education can still happen. You can put us under a tree, as long as the teacher and the student can interact, education will happen. But if you remove the student, there is no education when there's a teacher alone. If you remove the teacher, there is no education when there's a student alone. So the teacher and the student are the irreducible minimum. So how do we keep these irreducible minimums in contact? Technology. That's exactly how it has got to be, which means that our educational policies and our budgets must now align to ensure that technology is available and it's accessible to a vast majority, which brings me to the consumer part now. There are always what we call unintended consequences of technology. Like right now, for us to be having this conversation, you need to have a laptop, I need to have a device, I need to have internet access that allows me to be able to engage with you. So which means that as a consumer, how do I then use technology that I don't have access to? So I've heard the cries for taking education online, doing all of these things, but we also have to understand that we are in Africa, where access to internet is still a luxury, it's still a privilege to many. And so we're now in a position where almost like the failed No Child Left Behind policy in the United States is where we're going to find ourselves. That in as much as we get excited about the availability of educational material online, many people cannot access it right now, which means they have been left behind. During these 2 months of a lockdown period and so forth, they have been left behind. So when we're coming back to school, it's only the very few, the minority, that have had access to this technology that actually are going to be ahead. The rest now have to play catch up. And when it comes with education, the moment a child, especially, this is why I'm passionate about early childhood development, because it's the foundation. Now you find that the moment you disconnect people from school, children know that going home is holiday. It's not class, it's holiday. So their minds are not considering education at this moment. So we're going to come back and we're going to be finding ourselves in a situation where we have to repeat all the material, from January, if not even worse. And that's the challenge with education. But at the end of the day right now, as a developer myself, I've put it upon myself to ensure that I reduce the impact of unintended consequences in the development of my civic technology. I should be able to create technology that allows Dr. Mutoko, wherever he is, to be able to function, to be able to access technology. Then, even if he doesn't have access to the internet, there's going to be an ability for updates to happen whenever you actually do have that. So access to the information must still always be there, no matter what happens. We can't avoid technology, which means that now the variables now are coming into play again, Doctor, where electricity has to be available. Data prices have to drop and allow. The infrastructure as well for the networks has to be improved. Because you see, today we were fighting with the networks here, but we should not be talking about fighting with internet network at this stage in our life. It's 2020. We should not be talking about struggling with internet in this day and age. So you can imagine if us, Doctor, who are privileged to have access like this, what more a student in Shakawe, what more a student in a rural village, in Zambia, how do they get access like this when they don't even have electricity? So rural electrification programs have to align with educational programs. So we understand what is happening. That would be my take in regards to education.
Oh, very, very powerful and very painful right there, because as you are talking of people who are excluded right now, that's the majority. I know in other countries, internet is available to everybody. And I think our governments in Africa need to start seriously putting measures in place to make sure there is internet everywhere. If they don't have enough money for that, they need to negotiate with the service provider so that internet is there for everyone. Think of it right now. Churches are now being done online. In my own thinking, I believe churches are essential services because churches, shape the minds of people. Churches, they bring so much value to the society. Now you can imagine how many people have internet so that they can hear the pastor or watch the pastor online. Exactly. Very few people. Same applies to schools and all that. Very painful reality. And I hope as we come out of COVID-19, because I don't believe COVID-19 is the last thing and the worst thing that is ever happening to us. More things are coming and we need to be ready. We need to really wake up as individuals, as leaders, at organizational level, and as leaders even at national and international level.
Exactly, Doctor. You said that this is one of the reasons why I had to delve into events management for the sake of risk assessment and risk analysis in itself. Right now, we need to improve on our disaster management, and even many companies right now don't even have a risk management plan. They've never had a risk management plan. They didn't even anticipate for a position where they should be dealing with this. Some don't even have business continuity plans. They are not there. And when you talk to them about these things, they are looking at you and saying, what is this one trying to talk about? And these are some of the things that we talk about in enterprise marketing to say, look, you don't have a business continuity plan here. There's no risk management plan here. what if something happens? Where do we go? What happens like that? And this is the challenge that we are faced with.
Yeah, that is a big one. So I know that some of the questions I'm asking you were not there in the interview questions, but I'm just, you know, I always feel like, you know, for me, it's very funny. Let's say I meet you somewhere and then I start asking you questions, because I love asking questions, because I'm a student of life. I love learning. The moment you start talking and you are speaking sense, I feel like stopping you, because I just feel like I'm being selfish to hear all this for myself. How can I make sure that it's recorded so that others can hear it as well? So having this rare opportunity to have you, I know some people have been following you on Gaps FM. I listened to you the other day and I was like, wow. Why am I not bringing this man? And I know this is my brother. He has to come on my show.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yeah, amazing stuff. So I'm thinking, especially when it comes to empowering the small, medium, and micro entrepreneurs, what are some of the apps that you would recommend? Maybe 3, 4, 5 apps, maybe the ones that you use, or the ones that people who are trying to catch up with what's happening use, general apps. And then from there, I don't know whether you could also shed a bit of light. Honestly speaking, I'm struggling because I'm looking for accountants. I would love to interview accountants who can advise, because there's a research I did for 8 months in 2015 in the manufacturing sector in Botswana. And what I found out was that 50% of the entrepreneurs were saying that they do not keep records at all.
Oh, yes.
And of the 50% that said they keep records, they say, majority of them say the money comes through this side and it goes through that side. Yes, it's written down, but cash flow management is zero. So I know you are not an accountant, but I believe you can just suggest some basic things that people should do. I mean, honestly, I strongly believe that if we can empower entrepreneurs, my brother, if we can just help one entrepreneur from our videos to be able to hire one person. You know, it pains me a lot when I hear that one person has lost a job. Because when one person loses a job, it means 7 mouths or more are going to go hungry. Some kids are going to stop going to school. Now, what about this COVID-19? How many thousands, how many millions across the world are losing jobs? So you and me talking like this, we could play a role, even if it means touching 2 families. That would make me very happy. So if you have some apps that you can think about that can help people to be more effective, more efficient as business leaders or as entrepreneurs, and just basic accounting or basic record keeping, what can we say to our people? After this,
Definitely.
I will come back to Tariro and see whether she would want to, you know, show herself, and she tells us a little bit about Qatar and her thoughts, maybe just for 5 minutes, her thoughts about what we are discussing. If she is not comfortable with coming on video, it's still fine. She can just ask us some questions via chat. I leave it over to you, Mr. Anifas.
All right, thank you very much. Definitely. I think the most important things that we should do right now is stay connected, which means stay connected with information. And so we understand what's going on. So which means that the basic social media applications that we have, you should really be on them, especially as an entrepreneur. Your Twitters, your Facebooks, your LinkedIn, there is quite a lot of information that is being shared. Now, when you go on these applications, the idea is not to just anything comes. You've been given the option to opt in, to follow, you know, relevant things, especially with Twitter. You've got accounts from some of the largest organizations in the world, International Labour Organization, the African Union, SADC in itself. They all have information, and even national governments. You can hear what's happening with the Uganda government. You can find out what's happening with the Rwanda government, with the Angolan government. You can get information before it's even in our newspapers, before it's even being communicated by other people. And as an entrepreneur, it helps you plan and strategize. Because maybe you're producing something here, and Angola is talking about looking to import that same thing. But because you've been following on Twitter, you can actually, oh my God, you get that information in advance and not wait. For example, here we have the Global Expo. and not wait for the global expo to happen before you get insight onto what's happening around you. So these apps are important, and selectively choosing the people that you are following, that one is critical. You need to selectively choose the people that you are following in that regard. Productivity applications, doctor. You know, it's easy right now as we are seated. We were creatures of routine before COVID-19. You knew that 6 o'clock, between 6 or 6:30 or between 7:30 and 8, I'm driving, I'm at the office at 8, I'm working like this. We were creatures of routine. Now the routine has been taken away, which means now without routine, we have to maintain productivity, you see? So it means that productivity apps, you need to have them in your phones, in your devices. There's one that I use on my phone called Bear. It's an application that allows me to strategize, to take notes, to plan, to organize, to keep routine, and so forth. So those productivity apps, they help you as an entrepreneur. You have got to create a routine for yourself now more than ever. The discipline of routine is required now more than ever before. And when you use those, you're okay. Then I would like to talk about this creature called YouTube, doctor, that gave us problems. Now, many people don't know that the amount of information, like right now, just subscribing to your show is information that people are paying thousands and dollars for in schools and in conferences and in meetings. But all they have to do is to click like, click subscribe, and the notification, you know. If they could go and listen to the interviews that you've put up there right now with all those amazing people, that is mind-blowing information. There's so much to learn just from the few that you have put up now. I mean, it might not be 300, but there's few that you put up now that are, it's as if you've watched 300 already, you know, if you go and watch them. So YouTube is so important right now. It's a teacher, it's an educator, it's access to conferences you'd never have had access to. So I recommend that if you're an entrepreneur, you have got to find your way and find yourself into YouTube. Search. It's so easy. The content is there. I cannot begin to stop singing the glory of what YouTube is. And these are things that you sit down 2 months. 2 months is even a long time, doctor. 1 month of listening to this material, it changes your perspective. You know, there are things that I explain to you, not only in layman's terms, in professional terms. You can grab a basic understanding of a lot of principles that are affecting the world right now and where you need to go. And when it comes to bookkeeping, it's the same thing. If you go to YouTube, you'll be taught everything you need to know about bookkeeping, everything you need to know about record keeping. It's right there. They will simplify it to the T. To the point that you ask yourself, but why was I not doing this? Because it is that easy. And also, you mentioned something about, you know, money comes in this way and it goes out that way. This is one of the things that I've personally done over the years, is be able to make money, reinvest it. If it means buying a software, if it means paying for a license, if it means buying a laptop, that becomes very, very important to reinvest in the business. Many businesses are being caught out right now, doctor, because the business leader bought a brand new Mercedes instead of investing in the company. And now the company is struggling with finances in this difficult time, but they are looking at a fleet of liabilities staring them in the face. Why? Because money was coming in this way and going out the other way. And that needs to change, especially for business leaders and entrepreneurs. That has got to change. No two ways about it.
Awesome stuff. Thank you so much. Highly appreciated. So Tariro says, thank you, doctor, for this platform. Allow me to raise the right to not switch on my video option, with some laughs there. That's understandable, Tariro. We really appreciate you. However, as part of the teaching industry on this end, I was moved by the reminder that there are two irreducible minimums when it comes to education, a teacher and a student. We have been lucky enough to run online classes for our students. It breaks my heart realizing that education policies and budgets in some of our African countries are currently not aligned in such a way that it enables the education system to move forward. I can only hope that this wave brings about change. Definitely so. Thank you so much, Tariro. That was a mouthful. We really, really appreciate your coming to the platform. We don't take you for granted. Guess what? You could be on other platforms watching movies right now, or you could be sleeping or doing other things, but you decided to spend time with us. Mr. Anifasi, I need to appreciate you, my brother. We have come from far, and I just trust that many people are going to see this interview and engage with it. You know, as you were talking right now, I'm thinking as soon as we are done, I need to go into my Twitter, look at the International Labour Organization, look at what the Rwanda government is saying, and all that. I mean, we need to be practical. The reason why many people are not successful is because they hear, but they don't do. And one of the biggest challenges I've seen with our people, particularly, I'm sorry to say, but the black race, our own people, we people, we love fun too much. And we are not willing to pay the price for success. And when we see successful people and high flyers and multimillionaires, we give them names. May God have mercy on us. Because it's high time.
Definitely.
I mean, you find that you are doing something. I mean, I've seen some people. There's another guy I interviewed. He posts things on his Facebook. And you see 3 comments. This is a highly successful man. But when somebody posts some nude pictures or something crazy, that's where you see that people have bundles. We think that people have no bundles, but they have them. And we can't blame them anyway. They can use them the way they want. But we just hope that our people will begin to take important things seriously. If we are going to see Africa arise, then we need to become serious as individuals as well. Do you have something else you would want to say as we close?
I think, Doctor, let me just leave these remarks, these last remarks here, to say that, you know, it is our responsibility to safeguard our destinies, our futures, and where we want to go. I will not stop saying that this COVID-19 has given us the privilege to experience something that others will never experience in life, to allow us to reset, to rethink the direction that we have been taking. You know, you look at, for example, Doctor, we have very nice cars parked outside our houses, but no medicine cabinet inside the house. At a time where you can't even go to the doctor, you don't have painkillers in the house. We have spent money on these nice vehicles, but you don't even have a borehole outside, yet it doesn't cost. It's cheaper to have that water there than the car. There's things that we've been given the privilege to look at again and say, is this the way that I wanted to go with my life? Is this what I wanted to do with it? For the first time, others have seen parliamentary discussions happening. For the first time, they never knew what happens in parliament. They never understood regulations and policies. They never understood what's in the constitution that governs them. The one that dictates to them whether they can succeed or not. 20 years they never knew. Now is the first time they are realizing what it means for certain things to be happening in the country. So we've been given this privilege. I would, you know, the Bible says, Doctor, we are Christians. The Bible says that which was meant for bad is turned around for our good. We cannot lose our faith. So that which was supposed to be meant for bad is now good. It's working together for our good, which means now we can gain understanding. We can gain insight in what are the policies governing farming? What are the policies governing travel? What are the policies governing education? All of these things. What about banking? What's happening with our banks? And that having been said, Doctor, as individuals now, I'll go back to that discussion that we're having about bosses and employees. Now people are seeing whether you care about them or not, at whatever level you are at, they are seeing. Which means that if as a business you didn't care about your consumers, they have seen you during this period of crisis. You see, they've seen you as a representative, a political representative. They have seen you during this crisis, which means that now we've been taken back to remove the flashiness, to say, but does Dr. Mutoko actually care about our future in this industry? You see? So now you have been seen. And so the expectation business-wise, he's going to shift not from products, right, to service quality. And people will now look and say, look, I'm not going to give you my money. Already it's scarce. So which means that now we're not going to judge you based on the quality of your product, but on the quality of your service and your personality. Your business character now is coming to the fore. So as an entrepreneur, I hope you've been taking the time to understand what's happening, see the gaps where people have failed to deliver on service, where people have been rude to people. You know now that there's an opportunity for me to come in and be filled with love, appreciation, empathy for a potential consumer base. And you use that to leverage yourself post lockdowns and post global pandemic announcements, and you move with that character, and you find that you penetrate the market in a way that you never even thought possible. As people neglect the bigger companies and come to you because they'd rather deal with someone on a one-on-one personal basis. I think with those words, Doctor, I've shared a mouthful.
That's amazing. I can't stop listening to you. You know what came to my mind as you were concluding?
Yes, Doctor.
I was thinking, no, he's thinking he's going. He can't go. It's too early. You know what came to my mind? I know you have been been very humble in the interview. You didn't want to mention some of the things that I know you do and how successful you are in different businesses. And I'm not going to push you along those lines, but I wanted you to give some insights into, yes, we talked about farming. Obviously, somebody wants to go into farming. There is a rearing of broilers. There is rearing of Dikukutsa Strana or John Walker. There is the rearing of layers. There is the rearing of pigs. There is the issue of doing crops. There is the issue of doing fruit trees. What would you say in 2 minutes, just, your own thoughts for Botswana and for Zimbabwe?
Okay. I would say that, number one, as long as human beings are born, they are born with a stomach,
right,
and with a biological desire for nutrition.
Right.
And people will always need to eat. It doesn't matter what's going on in the world. It's a guarantee. If there's one thing that you are guaranteed is that a human being needs to eat.
Right.
Now, a human being also needs nutritional provisions. It's not just about eating. And I know that nowadays we're so keen on fast food because we've been on these fast routines and so forth. So the time to cook, the time to do this, it has not been there. And it's important now to realize that with people now being more strict with the use of finances, that they would be looking for food that they can buy and cook for themselves. Meaning that as you go into farming, I know it's spoken of as a hobby, as a retirement hobby in most scenarios where people say, now that I've retired, I'm going to go to the farm. That is very disrespectful to a very, very extremely critical and noble profession, which is farming in itself. But because people have spoken of it like a hobby, it makes it seem like it's so easy that I'll just take 10 chickens, put them there, and then, it's all done, and then they'll just lay eggs, and then it is not that way. It is not that way. Farming is, it's an exciting profession. It's one that demands you apply a lot of knowledge, I remember I was speaking to somebody and they said, we're discussing education, they're saying that not everybody needs to go to school. Some can go and be farmers. And I said, my friend, do not disrespect farming in that fashion. Because you still need to go to the school of agriculture to understand farming. So it might not be a formal school, but it's still a school. You need to learn the elements of everything. So you're fascinated by chickens. Learn everything you need to learn. Understand their feed, understand their breeding patterns, understand what happens to them in different environments and temperatures. No matter what you are doing, whether it's crops and so forth, you need to understand that. Now, you also need to pick what would work for you, what would work best for you. Just because someone else is doing a Brahman bulls, for example, doesn't mean that Brahman is going to work for you. Maybe it's too complex for you to understand the workings of Brahman. Maybe you are suited more for dairy production. So find out what exactly works for you so that you can pick the gap that you would like to go into. Understand everything involved in it. Don't take it for, even when I'm saying people need to eat, don't take it for granted. Because right now, Dr. Mutoko knows exactly the type of steak he likes. So it's not good enough to just say it's beef. No, you need to know how much the cuts are going for. What are the market prices? What is happening with this and this? And this is why there's such a big opportunity for us in Africa to start trading in these daily commodities that we are using. I mean, that's an idea for somebody to take and create an exchange for us to trade in these beefs and cabbages and so forth that we're working with. Also, you know, it's easy, you know, sometimes when you're a person who is of the faith, you know, to have the patience and the hope. Sometimes when somebody doesn't have something to lean on, it's difficult to engage in things like farming, where, for example, you put potatoes in the ground and you can't see them. And you're there scratching your head, wondering, will they come out? Because you can't dig them until the time is right. So I'm saying this to say you need to have faith. You need to have faith that what you're doing is going to be good, it's going to be fruitful. You need to have the patience to see it through, right? Sometimes you're going to see people where they are now with 1,000 head of cattle. They started with 10. You need to be patient to understand that this is what farming is. And it has to be something that you are really passionate and eager to do. And also understand that the capital intensive nature of farming as well can determine where you go into, which field that you're going to get into. And also, let me dispel some myths, doctor, because some people think that they need to have 6,000 hectares of land before they can do something that produces a lot of money. 1 hectare of land can do so much for you. And if you go on this YouTube that we're talking about, if you go on this Twitter, just search 1 hectare of land. You'll find people who are grossing over $20 million a year on 1 hectare alone. So someone is sitting on 20 hectares saying, what can I do with this small piece of land? My brother, that is not small. That is huge. So let me say that, doctor.
Thank you so much. Highly appreciate it. I've seen on YouTube quite a number of guys who run 1 acre farm. Of course, 1 acre is much smaller than a hectare, and they actually make huge sums of money. You know what? My take home from that, which I think is also a take home for many people, is that you don't say I'm going into agriculture because I'm not going to school. You need to go to the school of agriculture. Otherwise, you will be a substantive, what do they call? Is it a subsistence farmer? You will just be having something to put in the mouth, but nothing to sell. So thank you so much. Highly appreciated for your time. So if people want to get in touch with you, where do they get you?
It's not a problem, doctor. They can always find me on, I am on Twitter. That's Bryan, the way it was spelled with a Y. That's Bryan1 Lux, Lux. You know, that's me on Twitter. They can find me on Facebook. That's Tapiwa Bryan Anifasi, aka Pastor Taps. They can find me there on Facebook, and we can be able to interact nicely in that particular regard. So
awesome. You know what?
Instagram,
or Instagram, okay?
Yeah, the same handles as well. That's Bryan Lux on Instagram as well. Yes.
Nice.
And if they can call me, if they feel free, doctor, 7431-7357 is my number. They can text me or app me. That's the number that I use for interactions with people.
Awesome.
And they can also listen to Gebs FM.
Gebs FM. Yeah, beautiful.
Currently, we are on Sunday, the Sunday slot during the COVID period. That's 9:30 in the morning every Sunday. But when we go back to normal, it's usually on Mondays. The program is called Monday Bliss, but for the sake of the situation, it's called Bliss on the Juice on the Lockdown. So that's Sunday, 9:30. Yes.
Nice one. Thank you so much, my brother. I really appreciate you, and the Lord bless you. You know what? I don't know. I just don't know what's happening, but I feel like we need you to pray for our viewers that the Lord will bless them.
Not a problem, doctor.
Just before you pray, Tariro, thank you so much for your presence. We really appreciate you, and we hope we will continue connecting in other platforms. Over to you, Pastor Taps.
All right. Thank you very much, doctor. It's been a pleasure and a privilege as always. Every time you invite me, I rush over because we have an energy that links and there's a support that is really amazing. And so let me just say to the viewers that thank you so much for watching this. Thank you so much for getting some takeaways from it. And all the way from Qatar, we really appreciate that dedication and that commitment to listen to what we have had to share with you and to also believe in what we had to share with you. Now it's all to practicalizing it. And so allow me just to pray in short and just send you off with a blessing from the Lord. Heavenly Father, we just want to say thank you for the privilege and the opportunity to use these platforms to share knowledge. You said in your word, my people perish for lack of knowledge. But here we are dispelling and dispensing knowledge to your people because we do not want any of them to perish. Father, we thank you for the viewers that have learned so much, that have heard so much from us. And we know that with your guidance and with your spirit, you're giving them the courage, the inspiration, the strength, the fortitude to carry forth their dreams and go through this period that we're going with and come out at the end victors. Come out at the end victors because they understand that you are with them. We thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Mr. Bryan Anifasi or Pastor Taps. We really appreciate your time and thank you for the blessings. Enjoy the rest of the night. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Doctor.
Bye-bye, Tariro.
Bye.